Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to our new podcast. For all these people that want to discover other things besides Beethoven and Mozart and Schubert, we will present you something very new, which is indeed very old. Hi, Jens.
Some of it is, sure.
So today we are talking about this guy. We are talking today because of a new album will be released on Capriccio. It's one of his wonderful operas, the Jeanne d'Arc. I mean, everyone knows Jeanne d'Arc, and no one knows Mr. Braunfels, and even less people know that there is an opera.
The Maid of Orleans. Yeah, I was so glad that you released this performance, because the very performance is the one that I was at in Salzburg.
Oh, really? Okay.
In 2013.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And the festival put on two operas that I really desperately wanted to see, that were my main reason for going there. And that was Gawaine's Birtwhistle's Gawaine and Braunfels' Jeanne d'Arc. And it was just a one-off performance, semi-stage, well, not even semi-stage, concertant, basically, in the Felsenreitschule. And it was gripping. It was so good. And it was one of the very few operas where I remember sitting there and I wanted to know what was going to happen next.
I happily had the chance 7 years ago. The grandchild of Mr. Braunfels, she visited me here in Vienna, and I could do a little interview, as we did already and recorded already other CDs. So we are looking what she has to say about her grandfather.
Die Erlebnisse im Ersten Weltkrieg haben ihn doch sehr beeindruckt und ihn den Katholizismus nahegebracht. Und er war zwar evangelisch geboren, aber ich weiß nicht, ich glaube, man ging einmal Weihnachten in die Kirche und das war es dann. Und hatte eigentlich damit mit Religion eigentlich nicht viel am Hut. Er war von 1933 bis 1945 lahmgelegt wegen der Rassegesetze. Er ist 1933 ziemlich schnell und relativ als erster entlassen worden als Direktor der Musikhochschule und hatte Aufführungsverbot. Dann kam es auch zu immer wieder Einbrüchen und er konnte dann auch nicht irgendwie stillruhig durchkomponieren. Alle Söhne im Krieg, im Grunde genommen ein zerlegtes Reich und man wusste gar nicht, wohin es ging. Also das war wirklich sehr schwierig für ihn. Er ist sicher immer tonal geblieben oder er wollte auch immer tonal bleiben. Natürlich ist man auch den anderen Einflüssen, kann man sich denen nicht verschließen und wollte er sich auch denen nicht verschließen. Aber er hat es mal versucht mit der 12. aber hat es eigentlich gesagt, das ist nicht mein Metier. Er war zuerst aus allen Lexikas rausgerissen worden, aus jeder Art von auch, Literatur herausgestrichen worden. Und jetzt spielte er dann das zweite Mal keine Rolle mehr. Das ist wirklich ein blödes Schicksal, muss man sagen, ein trauriges Schicksal.
Now, Jens, what can you tell me about Mr. Braunfels, the story behind? You just said it's so amazing and so interesting. I'm playing now the stupid guy I never heard about.
He was a very successful composer. Early on, his first opera, Die Vögel, was the second most performed opera in Germany, at least, if not Europe, after something by Richard Strauss. And he had a major career, not just as an opera composer, as a composer of symphonic works. And having a Jewish father, even though his father had converted to Protestantism, his career was obviously threatened, and more than just his career. Incidentally, he did stay in Germany, but he got fired from all his jobs, and he retreated into inner exile and moved to Lake Constance, where he composed just for himself, knowing that nothing that he'll write will be performed, which is an example of which is the Johannes, which he wrote the entire opera, never having seen it himself. And he had been reinstated to head the academy in Cologne after the war, but he already sensed that when his works were played, people were doing him a favor, but it didn't hit the mood of the time. People were more interested in string quartets with helicopters and
Yeah, but that is exactly the point, because I was very surprised when I listened to his music. Even he had written that after the war. It's so harmonic. It's really not, how you can say, modern like it was at this time with Stockhausen and Boulez. It's totally in a romantic style. You know?
It's definitely not avant-garde. I think it can be modern to some degree, but it's a different definition of modern than we have come to understand. A lot of people tend to think that modern is ugly, or at least extremely complex, not tonal. And Braunfels is all of these things. He's tonal, it's chromatic. It's not old-fashioned, but it's definitely got his own voice. And it's right up there with the music of a lot of other composers that we'll probably get to talk about at some point.
This opera has 3 parts. The first part is the summons. You say summons? So
Sure, I suppose.
summons, die Berufung. Okay, my English is not so good. I'm sorry. So that's why.
That'll improve radically over once we hit podcast 500.
Okay, this is the summons. Okay. So first part is the summons. Second part is the triumph. And the third part, of course, is the suffering, then, das Leiden. In this, let's say, 3 acts or 3 parts is a huge story. I mean, everyone knows the story. My favorite now is this, how you say in English, kitschy, a bit kitschy. Oh, no, but it's so beautiful. I love it a bit kitschy.
There's nothing wrong with beauty.
There's nothing wrong with beauty. The finale of the second part.
Right, which I believe is the coronation of the Dauphin to become the King of France, and it's the beginning of the liberation of France from the English, which would, of course, take many, many more years.
And we have a boys' choir, the Salzburger Festspiele und Theater Kinderchor. This is such a long word, but they do it amazingly.
And by the way, we should point out the cast of this, you just mentioned some of these singers, is unbelievable. And in 2013, half of them were not known at all. Juliane Banse had made a name for herself by then, and she created that role, I believe. Because
she sang it twice. No? She also sang it in the first recording at Decca.
Right. So Honeck discovered this piece when someone said, "Oh, you should really conduct this," and then he looked at the score and he was amazed and said, "Oh, really? I have to do this." And he was planning to do a performance with Bavarian Radio, and then for some reason or another, it didn't go through at the time, and the world premiere ended up being the performance in Stockholm. I think it was in Stockholm, right? with a Swedish RSO, which had been released on Decca, completely out of print now. Also a beautiful recording. And Juliane Banse was the Johanna there, as she had been in many performances since, and then she came back to Salzburg to repeat it. But also the tiny little roles. I mean, we have Pavol Breslik. It's not a big role, but he's a fantastic singer. And Norbert Ernst is in there, and who else? Wiebke Lehmkuhl. A lot of young singers from the Young Singers program at the time also.
Yes, I was really surprised because I found the name of Johan stuck, and she's really now a huge career at the moment, and there she was in a little role in this Young Singers project,
as a supporting cast member. So they had a real feel for the cast there.
Yeah. By the way, you also wrote the booklet notes, so I could learn about already from you a lot about this role between the Bluebeard and Johanna.
I mean, the historical figure of I will always want to say Captain Bluebeard, but that's a German children's story. Of Duke Bluebeard is not quite certain, but essentially Gilles de Rais is supposed to be the same character, and in that sense, you could almost think of Jeanne d'Arc as a prequel to Bartók's Bluebeard's Castle. Or the other wonderful opera, Ariadne Barbe, by Dukas. Braunfels he wrote his own libretto, as he was wont to do, and took the material, which is the original transcripts from the trials, the various trials, a lot of all original sources, I think, and somehow turned that into an opera that, yes, covers the main arc of the story, no pun intended, but also really explores the humanity of it, the little relationships between Jeanne d'Arc and Gilles de Rais. And they don't fall in love in a conventional way because she's, almost possessed by God and is calling to free France, so she's got other things on her mind. But there's a really fine, subtle, romantic streak going in there. Gilles de Rais feels that he's troubled, and he also feels that maybe Jeanne could save him, not in a Christian manner, but as a person with her love. And you think, oh, if that had happened, we would have lost the other operas about Bluebeard, but it would have had a happy end, perhaps.
So now Braunfels brought this in wonderful music, and we can hear now how Gilles de Rais or Bluebeard, how Gilles de Rais or Bluebeard wants to try to offer his big love to Johanna.
It's his one last push for his own future, in a sense.
Yeah.
Kann irgendwas geschehen, das Gott nicht will? Und der große Gott verfügte, dass dir ein Leid gescheh, ich träg es nicht. Drum verlastet auf mir eine Macht, die nicht mit dir gemeint, sie träumt sich auf gegen deine sanfte Sicherheit. Und wenn du fielest, ja, fielest, von Hölle ich einen tiefen, grässlichen Fall, von Ränge aus den tiefen, schwarz verrenkten Griften meiner Seele. Ich lehne Stimme vor, Ich will ja. Ich will.
I never understood really in this story about Jeanne d'Arc that she once said, "Oh, I'm the daughter from God, or I'm from God, and whatever." But then she said she had to deny it. You said
Well,
deny?
she didn't say she was the daughter of God.
Okay.
That would have been blasphemy outright.
Okay.
But she did say she had an appearance, a vision of God, and that she had a calling. And after being successful in that, the powers that be in the clergy were skeptical of that, at least, and she was made to recant. And I think at this point she may still have thought that she possibly might have a chance to live if she did recant, and she was advised to do so by well-meaning people around her, and so she did. And then she realized that was the wrong thing to do, because she had a calling as far as she was concerned. So the idea is that if she has to die anyway, she might as well stay true to herself and true to God. And of course, in doing so, really angers the clergy. And then, of course, we know what happens. She achieves a rather flammable end.
Let's listen a bit to the finale. And one guy is really suffering, the Gilles de Rais, as you say, the Mr. Bluebeard.
Well, his life goes up in flames in a way, even not his Jean's.
Indeed, you will hear the flames, and you can.
Wir haben eine Heilige verbrannt. 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 Wir haben eine Heilige verbrannt
I like the bells in the finale.
There's a lot of Wagner in some of the treatment of the
You
orchestra.
know, you cannot always compare with Wagner. It's Braunfels.
Well, if you're not famous, that's your lot. You're going to be compared to people who are more famous than you.
Thank you very much. This was the podcast about Walter Braunfels' Jeanne d'Arc. Thanks, Jens. You're thirsty? You're hungry?
Well, will be in a second. Apologies. This is our first podcast.
Oh, really? Isn't it?
Technically, we have,
Okay.
so we'll improve. No
Will
doubt.
improve. Okay, will improve. Stay tuned. I
Please
think
do.
you always say stay tuned. Stay tuned.
Humor us.